Massachusetts Attorney General Maura Healey is our guest this morning. Let's go on the record. In person, in the courtroom, and online, she's pressing cases with local and national impact. In the midst of a pandemic, how Maura Healey is charting a path that could well lead beyond the AG's office. Let's go on the record.
From WCVB Channel 5, the inside word from Washington to Beacon Hill. Today's newsmakers are going on the record.
Welcome to OTR on this Sunday morning. I'm Ed Harding, along with News Center 5's political reporter Janet Wu. Massachusetts Attorney General Maura Healey joins us in Studio C this morning. And in this time of COVID-19, we are making the most of our large space to maintain all social distancing protocols. The AG, Healey, has served as the state's top law enforcement official since 2015, and before that, she serves as the chief of the Civil Rights Division. She's a graduate of Harvard University and of Northeastern Law School. It's great to have you with us as always. Thanks for your time.
Oh, it's great to be with you. I miss you.
It's wonderful that you came in person. We do appreciate that, even though we are social distancing. So it's September already. It's a big month for renters. You've uncovered a scam where folks looking for apartments but fearful of the pandemic are putting money down sight unseen. How prevalent is this, and is it statewide, Attorney General?
Yeah, Janet, I mean, we've seen all sorts of scam artists operate during Corona. Originally, there were people who were marketing coronavirus vaccines and treatments. We had to shut them down. Once again, we're seeing people take advantage of the times. You know, more people have to be online now. They can't physically sometimes go and look at apartment rentals. And so what we've uncovered is a scam where people are literally copying legit photos of listings, putting them on their own site, and then essentially luring prospective tenants in, asking for deposits. And of course, that money gets sent to them directly and doesn't end up with the landlord or with the real estate agent. So we're just trying to warn people, please go in person where you can and inspect, talk to the real landlord, verify that you're dealing with a legit registered licensed real estate agent, and call my office if you encounter any issues.
Would you say it's widespread, or is it isolated incidents, but many of them?
I think it's growing. I mean, I think what we've seen through this pandemic is more and more people are necessarily relying on the internet and not doing as much in person, understandably. And so the number of complaints to my office has increased, as well as to our real estate board. And so that's why we're out there taking action and really warning the public that unfortunately this is something to be on the lookout for, especially with, you know, Boston, the greater Boston area, so many students coming back, really concerned about people not being victimized here.
Well, what about evictions? How widespread is it due to the pandemic and the inability of people to keep up with their rent?
You know, Ed, this has been so devastating for so many families, out of work, behind on rent, unable to pay mortgages. When it comes to housing, you've got tenants who can't afford their rent. You've got landlords who can't afford their mortgages. It's a really difficult situation. The legislature, as you know, put in place a law that the governor just recently extended. There's a moratorium, no evictions or foreclosures until at least October 17th. And I think that's been the right thing to do. I think it's also right to recognize, though, that we're going to need to provide a lot of help, not just to tenants and families so they don't become homeless when that lifts, but also to these landlords who haven't been able to receive rent payments and are now really themselves facing foreclosure. We need a lot of federal assistance and funding here in Massachusetts.
So let's talk about voting. We've just gone through the primary. Obviously, the general is sitting in the early part of November. The president has urged people to try and vote twice, once by mail and then in person. So are you worried that this could happen here in Massachusetts?
I am so worried about the election, to be honest. We need to do everything we can to ensure that everyone has the right to vote and that their vote be counted. I don't care what party you're in. This is not a partisan issue. This is an American issue, fundamental to our democracy. Everyone should have the right to a fair and free and secure election. And obviously what we've seen from Donald Trump is efforts to undermine just that. I'm in court right now suing Donald Trump to stop him from continuing to mess around with the U.S. Postal Service, right? I've been clear. What he said last week, encouraging people to, let's be clear, violate the law, engage in a crime, commit a crime. You vote twice, you're committing a crime and you will be prosecuted. And the idea that Donald Trump as president would actually encourage people to do that is outrageous. it's shameful and just another instance of him violating all principles and norms for his own benefit. So I can assure you this, we are right there and will continue to be in court and outside of court, fighting to make sure that we have a free and secure and fair election in November, here and across the country.
Another pandemic-related problem that's cropped up through all of this is a federal court ruling this week has stopped President Trump's efforts to discount undocumented residents from the U.S. Census, which is still going on right now. Is this the end of the fight, and did this decision come soon enough? How confident are you now that everyone who should be counted will be counted under the law?
Really important issue, Janet, the census, right? Our census numbers control how much we receive in terms of federal funding. They control how we're represented, how many representatives we get in Congress. And unfortunately, my office had to sue Donald Trump a couple of years ago when he first tried to mess around with census counts. And we won, we stopped him there, and we stopped him the other day. We got another win in court. Here, he wanted not all of our residents to be counted. That's outrageous. That's ridiculous.
Do you think he has stopped it? Do you think he has stopped? I mean, the courts will have stopped this?
Well, the courts ordered it, so he has to follow that right now, and we are going to make sure that everyone is counted. I will tell you, though, that there is a real issue in us needing to continue to get word out. You've seen it from the Secretary of State, the governor, myself. People need to make sure they fill out those census forms and get those in. That's information that will be held confidential and private. It's not going to be used against you, but it is imperative that you be counted as a resident because, again, this determines the federal funds we're going to get or not get for things like housing and schools and transportation and so many essential services. So please, folks, not only do I want you to have a plan to vote and vote early, but also make sure you filled out that census form.
But I guess my question is that because of all this coverage over what he tried to do, are you fearful that a lot of people will not fill out the forms and they will not be counted and that it could possibly hurt us here in Massachusetts?
No, I think just the opposite. We've needed to be out, and I specifically have needed to be out as Attorney General, as a Chief Law Enforcement Officer and Legal Officer to say to folks, hey, this is the census. Make sure you're counted. You, all residents, are entitled to fill this out and should be filling this out. Do not feel threatened. Do not feel intimidated. In the same way Donald Trump wants to threaten sending people to the polls to bully them into not voting, he's trying to scare people here, and I am simply not going to stand for it. That's why I took him to court. I'm glad we won, and the message should be clear here in Massachusetts. Fill out your census form. Make sure you're counted. And if you're eligible to vote, make sure you have a plan to vote.
Let's talk about police reform. It's still stuck in legislative political negotiations. A key sticking point is what is called qualified immunity. It also was not addressed in this week's Boston Police Reform Report. Police now have broad immunity for their on-the-job action. So the simple question is, should that be changed?
I think the position that I've taken is that there should be some changes to the use of that particular doctrine. But I also want to be clear, Ed, that when it comes to reform legislation, some of the stuff that is getting less attention is actually critically important. The idea that we have statewide standards on things like use of force, statewide training, and also accountability. You know, Massachusetts is one of just a handful of states that does not license police officers and doesn't have an ability to decertify police officers, which, you know, is important. If you've got a police officer doing bad things, having engaged in illegal, harmful conduct somewhere, you don't want them to be able to move to the next town to commit the same activity. And so these things are part of both the packages of the House and the Senate, important. And so, you know, I'm optimistic that we'll see constructive reform come forward soon.
Could the courts be thrown in a chaos if old cases of alleged police misconduct are reopened?
I think it depends, Ed, on what that actually looks like. Certainly, I'm sure that the legislature is not looking to intend to or do that. That have to be analyzed. But I do think that something will happen. It should happen, and I think good people can come together in commonality to get this done.